just thought I'd speak today about evolution and what I think about it. I I I know God exists. I've seen him, but you're not going to know what I've seen. You're not going to perceive what I've seen to be anything. So I kind of looked into evolution, and let's start off with something. The evolutionary life period of the being, if you like. The evolutionary life period of the being is, well, it must have formed the same way it dies. And the reason I say this is because in death, we decompose very quickly. It's like a couple of days, isn't it? And we start decomposing. So if you look at people that say life formed over millions of years, it must be impossible, because life would have had to been in the being. What science is basically saying is that the body will not work without the heart. So at the beginning, when life was forming, if the being didn't have a heart, it would have no life. So this is what I don't get, how people conceive evolution to be right. It doesn't matter how far you break down the human body, or even the bodies of animals, you still can't. The being must have been whole to be living. And if it was whole, it must have had life in it from the beginning. So if there was no life in the creature, it would decompose. So our lifespan is, say, 80 years or 90 years, whatever the lifespan of the creature is. How, if something only lives for 80 years, did it evolve over millions of years? So the body, if you think about it, a molecule or some whatever formed the human body, and it happened over millions of years. I mean, we've got life. So science is actually saying this, aren't they? Evolutionists and people like that, they're saying that we grew from an amoeba. I've not looked how an amoeba works, but I don't know how it would work, because of the decomposition in death. There must have been life in the creature at the beginning when it formed, otherwise there would be no life in it. And also the eyes, the ears, the tongue. It does say in the Bible that the body is different members. So if you look at the body, as intricate as it is, then sight is something that the body is enabled to do. Now, if something couldn't see before there was sight, how did it know how to see? And if there was no ears, I mean, the ears are intricate. There's many little bones in the ear. There's a tube that enables the sound to go in. I mean, was the creature deaf before it could hear? So before it formed, it preconceded or knew what sound must have been to form the ears. Now the ears have formed. There's no, I don't get it. The nose is for smell. So without the nose, there is no smell. Without the eyes, there is no sight. Without the ears, there is no sound. So when the body formed, if there was any life in it at all, then it started to do abilities that it didn't know existed. And there's no structure in life, according to atheists. So how did that happen? Another thing is, with the eyes, we have these rods and cones, which are the primary colours. And these primary colours enable us to see things in different colours. Now, how did evolution even put the primary colours to see other colours? I mean, if they were out of sync, we would be seeing all shades of one colour, wouldn't we? So, not saying that, for them to form, they must have preconceded colour, because they formed to be able to see colour. which is fractions of light. And the tongue formed to taste and to enable us to speak. So it had a function before it formed. So I don't get it, how the body formed over millions of years, because every different part of the body being different in use, and if there was no life in the creature, it decomposes very quickly. So as the skin formed, if there was no life in that skin, it would decompose. And when we die as human beings or whatever creature, the decomposition of the body would not be so severe, would it? Because it would have taken millions of years for the skin to form over the bones. I don't know how that all worked, but it preconceded. And the heart and the valves in the heart, if one of them goes, as you know, you get a heart attack. And if the heart isn't working, now what the Bible says is we have a living soul. So somebody thought when they wrote the Bible that they put a soul into the living body, and that living soul would be life, wouldn't it? But science is saying that we formed. Now, in my mind, it's impossible we formed over millions of years. And the fact that everything preconceded its use before it formed. I mean, look at the eye. In an eye socket, I mean, were we blind before we could see? Were we deaf before we could hear? Or were all these attributes actually in the being beforehand? It doesn't matter what different ways things hear or see, but these attributes are there, and they're part of life. So as the thing formed, with life already in it, it would have preconceded that it would be able to do these functions, otherwise it would not be able to do them functions. And if we were blind or if we were blind, we wouldn't be able to eat. If we were deaf, we wouldn't be able to communicate. And even if the ears formed before we could hear, they were forming to do something that they didn't know was there. So there's no intelligence, it just happened, say. But if something couldn't hear something because it didn't have an ear, how did it form to hear? So you can look at the body in many different ways, and you can look at it that if the decomposition value of the body when it dies, if that's the same as when it forms, then how did it evolve over millions of years? There's a few things for you to think about. I mean, if somebody's got something to say. I mean, I've had a couple of debates on how a maggot started to fly, and nobody's been able to answer me, because people have gone on answers that evolution has stated years ago. Somebody was looking at birds because they flew, but they obviously missed the maggot and the fly. So it shows you how people miss things even though it's blatantly obvious. I mean, the caterpillar turns into a chrysalis. If anybody's ever fished in their life, when you open a chrysalis that the maggot turns into, it's just a load of gunk. There's no creature in there. And even if there was a creature, so it turns from a wriggly thing that eats bacteria and then turns into a fly. That tells me that in some ways that is the way that bacteria move, because it goes with the fly. Whether that be true or not, I don't know. That's just something I thought about. But there is no learning for a fly. It didn't take millions of years to fly, did it? Because the process is the same from a maggot to a chrysalis to a fly. It didn't evolve any differently, did it? It didn't evolve. It didn't start off as a maggot that didn't fly. There's something between that stops the learning process. If the maggot turned into a fly without turning into a chrysalis, there could be basically a small argument that it wriggled and wanted to fly to take the bacteria away. I mean, I don't know. So That's not really had an answer. And let's just summarise what I've said. We've got a decomposition of the body, a couple of days or something like that, isn't it? We decompose very quickly. And if you look at death as life, how did we evolve over millions of years? And how did things preconcede their use? I can't see how we evolved. I really can't. God exists. I know. I state that I've seen him. I believe I've seen him. In fact, I'd say I'd never seen him. I can't believe it would be anybody else that I saw. But I've had to try and look for things. I had the belief that I could see the unseen. So when I found the fly and the maggot, it was just part of seeing what people have missed that could actually attribute to the God's existence. And I think that's it. We'll finish there. That's a video for this week. Please share my videos, because if you don't share them, the word doesn't go out. I mean, you might want to try and make me look stupid if I proclaim that I can debate anybody with the existence of God, but I know he exists. There's no doubt in my mind he exists. And you know, some things are a bit odd sometimes, like the Holy Bible. It's called the Holy Bible, yet people steer away from it. It's kind of ironic. It makes you think what sort of beings would steer away from something holy, and it makes you think. Anyway, please have a think about how the skin, the body, the eyes, the ears, the body's different members, really have a think how this would have happened over millions of years. To me, it's impossible. So thank you for listening, and goodbye.